Welcome back to WWH. My name is Andrew Dreamer. Today we're counting down the top 10 horror remakes that chilled us to the bone, even though we thought we knew the story already. Get ready for some jump scares, some hauntingly good visuals, and maybe even a fresh take on a classic villain. Join me for this episode of Ranking Rumble. Remakes have become such a large part of Hollywood. It seemed for a while that there were no original ideas making their way to our screens. Luckily, that seems to have slowed down just a bit as we've gotten some pretty great original horror movies over the last few years. But I want to focus on those remakes today. Usually, I'm someone that prefers the original over a remake. I mean, if you're gonna remake a movie, at least come up with a solid reason for the movie to even exist in the first place, which I think a lot of them fail in that regard. But every once in a while, we do get something good, great even. As we go through this list, just remember this is my opinion. It's okay if our lists don't match up. Just let me know in the comments what your favorite horror remake is. On that note, grab your popcorn, make your way to your seat, and let's head down to the ring to get this Ranking Rumble officially underway. Starting us off at number 10 is House of Wax from 2005. This isn't your typical haunted mansion affair. This remake ditches the gothic chills of the original for a white-knuckled road trip nightmare. A group of college friends find themselves stranded near the eerily silent town of Ambrose. What seems like a quirky tourist stop, Trudy's House of Wax, it quickly turns deadly as they discover the disturbing truth behind the museum's disturbingly lifelike figures. This reimagining succeeds by trading in classic horror for a modern slasher experience. The film amps up the scares with some graphic kills, suspenseful chases, and a constant sense of paranoia. The young cast, featuring stars like Elisha Cuthbert, Chad Michael Murray, and Jared Padalecki, connect with a contemporary audience. Special effects create a nightmarish world where the line between wax and flesh blurs in some pretty horrifying ways. Look, I get why some people may not like this movie, but I think it's a lot of fun. At number 9, we have Night of the Living Dead from 1990. This film brought a new perspective to George A. Romero's groundbreaking zombie classic. This time, taking the director's chair was special effects legend Tom Savini, known for his gruesome work on several other projects, including Friday the 13th, The Burning, or even George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. While staying true to the core concept of a group of strangers trapped in a farmhouse amidst a zombie apocalypse, the 1990 version injects fresh scares for a modern audience. One key difference lies in the characters. Patricia Tallman's Barbara evolves from the original's damsel in distress into a resourceful survivor. The screenplay, penned in part by George A. Romero himself, delves deeper into the social commentary and explores the psychological toll of such a horrific situation. While some may argue it loses that raw, independent feel of the original, to me, the 1990 version of Night of the Living Dead succeeds by offering a more character-driven and gruesome reimagining of a horror classic. Next up at number 8 is The Hills Have Eyes from 2006. This film wasn't content with simply rehashing Wes Craven's 1977 original. French director Alexandre Aja injects a brutal and unrelenting vision, transforming the film into a modern shocker. While the core premise of a vacationing family stranded in the desert and targeted by cannibalistic mutants remains, Aja dials up the intensity to 11. This remake succeeds by grounding itself in a sense of raw desperation and relentless violence. The Carter family is far less idealized than their 70s counterparts, adding a layer of vulnerability that fuels the audience's fear. The mutant cannibals are more grotesque and feral, creating a truly nightmarish atmosphere. Aja's background in extreme horror shines through with unflinching portrayals of violence. It may not be for the faint of heart, but if you're looking for a brutal and terrifying experience, you should check this out. Our next entry is The Invisible Man, released in 2020. It's no secret that I love the original Invisible Man, but this film is a worthy successor. It's a clever reimagining of the classic tale. This fresh take on the story allows for a deeper exploration of themes like gaslighting and the psychological impact of abuse. Cecilia's struggle to be believed by the authorities and those around her creates a chilling sense of paranoia and isolation. Director Lee Winnell masterfully utilizes the concept of invisibility to build suspense, keeping you guessing about the unseen threat. The film also benefits from strong performances, particularly Moss's portrayal of a determined woman fighting for her sanity and survival. By flipping the script and focusing on the victim's perspective, the 2020 Invisible Man breathes new life into the source material, becoming a relevant and terrifying commentary on modern anxieties. Coming in at number 6 is Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1978. This isn't just a remake, it's often argued to be a superior film to the 1956 version. Directed by Philip Kaufman, this film takes the core paranoia of an alien invasion and injects it with a cold, unsettling dread that resonates deeply. While the basic plot of alien pods replicating townspeople remains, the 1978 version dials up the ambiguity and social commentary. This remake succeeds by grounding the story in a more relatable setting, a modern San Francisco. The paranoia surrounding the pod people becomes a metaphor for Cold War anxieties and the fear of societal conformity. The special effects, while low budget, are surprisingly effective, creating a pretty disturbing portrayal of the pod people's transformation. Donald Sutherland delivers a phenomenal performance as Matthew Bennell, a health inspector who becomes increasingly isolated as the invasion progresses. It also features Jeff Goldblum and Mr. Spock himself, Leonard Nimoy.
I possess the DNA of Leonard Nimoy?
I'm a pretty big Star Trek fan, so I think that's pretty cool. Number 5 in this ranking rumble is The Amityville Horror, released in 2005. While the core plot of the Lutz family moving into a house with a dark past, it stays the same, the film injects a more modern approach to the horror. Gone are the slow burn chills of the original, replaced with a faster pace, some jump scares, and a greater emphasis on the special effects. This remake caters to contemporary horror audiences. The use of some CGI creates a more visceral and graphic depiction of the house's paranormal activity. The scares are more frequent and intense, relying on sudden shocks and disturbing imagery. Ryan Reynolds and Melissa George bring a youthful energy to the Lutz couple, and that's a big reason that I like this remake so much. I genuinely think that this is one of the best performances Ryan Reynolds has ever given. The way he shifts from a father trying to build a relationship with his kids to a possessed, bloodthirsty person looking to kill his family is portrayed perfectly in the context. I do understand why people may not like this one as much, but for me, it's what I want out of a movie like this. At number 4, we have The Crazies, released in 2010. Look, all respect to George A. Romero, but I think this version of The Crazies is better than the original in every way. This isn't a shot-for-shot retread of George Romero's 1973 original. Instead, it takes the core concept of a town infected by a mysterious pathogen that drives its inhabitants to violence and injects it with a modern dose of paranoia and some action. This remake succeeds by offering a more polished and intense experience. The special effects are considerably more graphic, showcasing the effects of the disease in a visceral way. The pacing is faster, keeping the audience on the edge of their seats as Sheriff David Dutton fights to protect his wife and uncover the truth. Timothy Olyphant delivers a strong performance as a determined protagonist, and the supporting cast adds a lot of depth to the characters caught up in this horrific situation. Their struggle to survive and protect their humanity adds an emotional layer missing from the original. So if you haven't seen this movie, you should definitely watch it. Next up at number 3 is Friday the 13th, released in 2009. This is more than just a remake of the original film. It's really a remake of the first 4 films in the franchise. This approach breathed new life into the story of Camp Crystal Lake and its hockey mask killer, Jason Voorhees. One key element that made the 2009 film successful was its focus on character development. Unlike the often one-dimensional teenagers of the earlier films, this new cast has more depth and backstory. We actually care about their fates, at least for the leads anyway. This makes their encounters with Jason all the more suspenseful. Furthermore, the remake ups the ante on the violence and the gore. Utilizing modern special effects, the kills are more brutal and realistic, catering to the contemporary horror audience. While some may find it gratuitous, it undeniably adds a layer of intensity to the film. By offering fresh characters and a more graphic portrayal of violence, the 2009 version of Friday the 13th successfully revitalized the franchise for a new generation of horror fans. And we're still waiting for more. Coming in at number 2 is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released in 2003. You know, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of my favorite movies of all time. But as far as remakes go, this one gives you just about everything you could ask for. While it retained the core elements of a group of friends facing a murderous cannibal family in rural Texas, the remake injected a new level of brutality and a much faster pace. The film cranks up the violence with more graphic kills and a heightened sense of urgency. The scares are more frequent and in your face, relying on jump scares and relentless pursuit by Leatherface and his kin. The characters, though not much deeper than the 70s counterparts, are more active in their fight for survival, adding a layer of desperation to the narrative. I understand that this film loses a bit of that raw feeling that the original has, but not much. It retains a lot of the grittiness and nastiness and spins that into a story that's different enough to warrant its existence. And to me, that's why this film is a really, really good remake. On that note, it's time to unveil our number one entry in this ranking rumble. My favorite remake of all time is The Thing, released in 1982. The Thing isn't quite a traditional remake of the 1951 film The Thing from Another World. John Carpenter's version takes the core concept of a parasitic alien that can assimilate and imitate any living thing, but injects a healthy dose of his signature body horror and paranoia. This fresh take resulted in a film that has become an absolute classic. One key element that sets the 1982 film apart is its practical effects. The special effects team, led by the legendary Rob Bottin, created some of the most grotesque and disturbing alien transformations ever put to film. These visceral effects, coupled with the film's isolated Antarctic setting, create a constant sense of dread and claustrophobia. The film also boasts a strong ensemble cast, including Kurt Russell as MacReady, who perfectly embody the growing paranoia and distrust as the team is picked off one by one. This film succeeds by creating a more intense and horrifying experience. The focus on practical effects and body horror resonates with fans of creature features, while the themes of isolation and paranoia remain relevant. This unique blend of elements makes John Carpenter's The Thing a successful reimagining that stands on its own two monstrous legs. This might not be considered a remake to everybody, which I get, but I'm not going to pass up a chance to talk about The Thing. But that is going to wrap up this episode of Ranking Rumble. Check out the links in the description if you're interested in Redcon 1 products or merchandise or even supporting the channel on Patreon. Also, if you enjoyed this look at some really good horror remakes, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss any of the action here at WWH. And remember, in the squared circle of horror, there's no count out for nightmares. My name is Andrew Dreamer, and this is Wrestling with Horror.